medicine has its roots at the very beginning of human history on every continent. That was a quote from the National Institute of Medical Herbalists. About 40% of our prescription medicines come from plant extracts or synthesized plant compounds, says PBS.org. 80% of people worldwide rely on herbal medicines for some part of their primary health care, is an estimate from the World Health Organization. These quotes may have some of you nodding your head in agreement, and some of you may be in awe or even disbelief. All of these quotes are from reputable sources, and yes, medicinal herbs do in fact help us to be healthy and happy. For thousands of years, our culture and the cultures of others has been using plants to treat medical conditions such as depression, pain, the common cold, malaria, skin conditions, asthma, PMS, cancer, and much more. Even more surprising than that is how easy medicinal herbs are to grow at home. Some of the most common medicinal herbs can be grown easily right on your patio or in your own backyard, ready for your eczema poultice or common cold tea. Poultices and teas are only 2 ways out of many to process herbs for use at home. After I'm done here today, you'll be able to start your own medicinal herb garden at home and cure some of what ails you. Before I get into cultivating and processing your herbs, I want to begin by giving a little history of natural medicine and herbalists. Some of the earliest records of herbs as a medicine comes from 1500 BC in ancient Egypt. There's evidence showing that garlic, juniper, and myrrh were all used by the Egyptians for medicinal purposes. Writings were also found written by the Chinese describing plants used for medicine as early as 300 BC. Several indigenous cultures, such as African and Native American tribes, used herbs in healing rituals. Others developed traditional medical systems, such as traditional Chinese medicine. In 1000 AD, herbs were used to protect people from infection in England. During the 12th century, Welsh physicians used simple herb remedies and a good diet as the basis for good health. Early on in the 19th century, chemical analysis first became available. With this development, scientists began to extract and modify the active ingredients from plants. Today, the National Institute of Medical Herbalists combine historical knowledge with recent scientific research, and medical herbalists train for at least 3 years before treating patients. As I stated in the beginning, the majority of the world today still relies on medicinal herbs for most or all of their health care. 70% of German physicians prescribe 600 to 700 plant-based medicines. According to the University of Maryland Medical Center, in the past 20 years in the U.S., public dissatisfaction with cost of medicine and a general return to everything natural and organic has caused an increase in herbal medicine. Many medicines, over-the-counter and pharmaceutical, are derived from plant material. According to the University of Maryland Medical Center, almost 1/4 of pharmaceutical drugs are derived from botanicals. That's quite a few medicines when you think about the thousands of drugs that are out there. Some common drugs, many of which you have in your cupboard right now, are plant-based. For example, opiates such as morphine come from the poppy plant. Aspirin, which we are all familiar with, I'm sure, is derived from the bark of the willow tree. Throat lozenges and cold and nasal medicines are derived from menthe, also known as mint. One of the most surprising plant-based medicines comes from the cinchona tree. Its bark is used to make quinine, which is used to treat malaria. You may not be able to cure malaria from your kitchen, but you can create quite a few herbal remedies for very common ailments. I'm going to tell you about 10 very common and easy to grow herbs and their medicinal uses. First off, the basil plant is a very versatile herb for many ailments. Some of its most popular uses are for gas, stimulating the appetite, and for cuts and scrapes. The young leaves of the basil plant are either consumed or made into a poultice for cuts and scrapes. Another great herb for digestion is cayenne pepper. It aids in digestion, helps with indigestion, as well as clearing the sinuses. It also helps with blood pressure problems and makes a great pain reliever due to its high capsaicin content. Cayenne is usually consumed when the chilies have ripened. Ginger is another that is great for pain relief as well as many stomach ailments, including nausea and vomiting. Ginger is also used for burn relief. It is typically consumed either fresh or dried, or the juices are used for burn relief. Lemon balm is an herb that some of you may or may not have heard of. Along with chamomile, it is great at treating anxiety and insomnia. Lemon balm also treats insect bites and wounds when used as a poultice and when consumed. Helps with upset stomach. Chamomile, as mentioned before, is a very relaxing herb. Its leaves and flowers are also used to treat indigestion and skin inflammation, so made into a tea. Anything from the mint family, including catnip, are a jack-of-all trades type of herb. Mint helps with almost everything from stomach upset and indigestion to menstrual cramps, colic, and even helps with weight loss by suppressing the appetite. Another fantastic herb for home use is sage. Not only does it taste great in sausage, it also helps with mouth and throat inflammations. For any of you that ever feel a little sad, the leaves and flower of St. John's wort are great at relieving mild to moderate depression. Thyme is a great herb to have around for a cold. It helps tame cough, congestion, as well as indigestion and gas. And last but not least is feverfew. Feverfew remedies headaches, including migraines, helps with arthritis and skin conditions. Any of these herbs mentioned can be grown from seed at your house rather simply. Many people grow their herbs from bought seedlings. Although this is the quickest way, it is much more cost-effective to start from seed. Just plan on a few extra weeks for germination of the seeds. Start your seeds straight in the ground after the last expected frost in good organic composted soil. If starting seeds early before the last frost date, start them in peat pellets or pots. Peat pellets and peat pots are the best to use for seed germination. The peat holds moisture well, which is vital for germination. They also can be put directly in the ground rather than having to transplant the plants themselves. Some plants, like cilantro, do not transplant well, so being able to drop a whole pot into the soil is very useful. Your seedlings are usually ready to be placed in larger containers or put into the ground when they have 2 sets of true leaves and there is no danger of frost. Before putting your seedlings outside from indoors, make sure to harden them off gradually by acclimating them to the outside climate. Otherwise, the shock of temperature change can kill or damage them. Keep seedlings moist, water once the soil is dry to the touch. Keeping them too moist can also be detrimental, causing them to develop mold or root rot, so do not overwater them either. Once plants are transplanted into containers or your garden, make sure to water them at least once a week, and even more so during the hot summer months. It also helps to improve upon the soil by mixing in some organic compost and manure to feed the plants. When plants are ready to harvest, be sure to harvest regularly to encourage growth of new leaves and branches. Once harvested, there are several ways to go about processing them for storage and use. Here, I will only go over the most popular methods employed by home herbalists: teas, creams, decoctions, oils, poultices, and tinctures. First off, one of the easiest and most commonly used processes for medicinal herbs is making a tea. You can use either fresh or dried herbs, but I would personally recommend using dried herbs since the plant chemicals are more potent this way. To dry your herbs, tie them into bundles, then hang them to dry. To make a tea, allow the herbs of your choice to steep in a tea strainer and boil water and then consume. Sugar and honey can be added to enhance flavor. A fantastic way to use your herbs is to make them into a cream. A cream is a mixture of fats and water that blends with the skin. You may also know them as lotions. Creams are typically made with lanolin, beeswax, vegetable or fruit oils, and herb water. To use lanolin and beeswax, melt them in a double boiler with any oils and herb waters of your choice, and combine. Store in jars. Yet another great way to use your medicinal herbs is to make a decoction. A decoction is made by simmering larger pieces of herbs such as bark, roots, or twigs in water. Simmer until the water has reduced about a third. Drink a half cup 3 times a day of your preferred decoction. Making infused oils is personally one of my favorites, and it's a great way to store your medicines for future use. You can either use a hot infusion or a cold infusion. A hot infusion is made by heating gently your herbs and your favorite vegetable or fruit oil in a double boiler for 3 hours, then straining through cheesecloth to get out any stray bits. Store your oils in dark bottles once it cools. To make a cold infusion, pack a jar with herbs of your choice. Cover it with cold oil and put the lid on the jar. Let it stand in a sunny window for 2 to 3 weeks and squeeze the oil through a jelly bag and repeat the process. Store in dark glass bottles as well. Poultices are a great process for making remedies for the skin or wounds. To make poultice, boil herbs in a little hot water or bruise and chop the herbs slightly for a cold poultice. Smooth some oil on the skin to keep herbs from sticking. Apply the herb and wrap. Tinctures are yet another great long-lasting way to store your herbs for future use. To make a tincture, steep fresh or dried herbs in a 25% mixture of alcohol and water. Do not use methyl grain or rubbing alcohol, they are toxic. Vodka and rum are ideal. Place everything in a sealed jar and leave in a cool, dark place for 2 weeks, shaking once every day. strain the liquid through cheesecloth, and store in a dark glass bottle. Although all the plants that I listed earlier are relatively safe for consumption, some plants and plant parts can be toxic when used in the wrong way or wrong amount. Plants and herbs like aconite, wormwood, belladonna, nightshade, larkspur, mandrake, and boughane can still be used medicinally but need to have particular preparation and be used with extreme caution. Aconite, for example, has all toxic parts unless properly prepared. Wormwood is potentially toxic if taken internally to an excessive amount. Belladonna is best left for external use. Mandrake root can be ingested but has been known to cause hallucinations and madness. Some herbs are toxic if taken in excess but can still be used, normally at low doses. Plants like bittersweet, nightshade, bloodroot, foxglove, Indian hemp, indigo, and pokeweed are all low-dose botanicals. There are others that can be ingested relatively safely, but you should still use some caution. Ephedra, for example, is best at low doses considering it speeds up the nervous system and heart rate. Pennyroyal should not be used by anyone who is pregnant. It has been known to cause miscarriage. With an herb like rue and stinging nettles, skin contact should be avoided in case of rash. Lobelia and wisteria seeds are two more medicinal plants where caution should be used while harvesting, preparing, and consuming. Another dangerous point to medicinal herbs, especially store-bought ones, is the chance of high metal content from the soils where the plants came from. Since medicinal herbs are not pharmaceutical, in our country they are not regulated the same as prescription drugs, and there is a serious danger of contaminants. Of course, this danger almost diminishes with homegrown herbs. Another concern is the interaction of some herbs with others, and certain herbs with certain prescription drugs. It is always good to consult with a doctor or pharmacist if you're taking prescription drugs and herbal remedies to make sure that there are no reactions. No need to worry too much though. When herbs are grown organically and researched before being used, your chances of anything serious is relatively slim. In conclusion, medicinal herbs have been used for centuries upon centuries for all natural healing. Our country has become dependent on prescription drugs that are expensive to obtain. More and more people are turning to natural remedies grown out of the ground in their own backyards to help heal and keep them healthy. We should definitely take a cue from some of our neighboring countries and use more medicinal herbs instead of synthesized, man-made prescription drugs. Which sounds better to you, pulling your medicine out of the ground and preparing it yourself, or paying a doctor and a pharmacist to get a prescription?